Hey everyone, thank you so much for being here. Before we kick off this week's episode, just a quick ask. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure that you never miss an episode, never miss out on any of the strategies and tactics that we're sharing to help you continue charting your own path to freedom. And if you'd like to go deeper with any of this, we've launched a free Facebook group, which you can join at pathtofreedom.com/group. And we've linked that in the show notes to make it easy for you to find. All right. Thank you again for being here. Let's drop in to the episode. Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Path to Freedom podcast. Today, we're here to debunk another franchise misconception. That misconception is one I run into all the time as I'm talking to people about different types of franchise opportunities that could really align with their goals around business ownership. And that misconception is that one would need to have direct industry experience in the industry that they would consider owning a franchise in. For example, my wife and I own home service or home improvement franchise businesses, or we currently own one. We've owned another franchise in this category before that we sold last year. And neither of us had any prior professional experience in any capacity in anything related to home service or home improvement. I'm like the least handy guy you'll ever meet. I know looking at me, you probably can't imagine that to be the case, but I'm not handy. I'm not a big DIYer. You certainly don't want to pay me personally to come in and do any sort of work on your home. My wife was in sales before. She was in the pharmaceutical industry as a sales rep, and then in media, radio advertising sales prior to that. So us coming into that first home service franchise, we didn't have any relevant industry experience, but that was 7 years ago. We still own that business. It's a, multi-7-figure business for us today. It's been very, very successful for us. So why is that? Because I think this is important for people to understand, and probably something that, I don't know, keeps a lot of people from even really seriously exploring different franchise opportunities, because they look around at the different franchises out there and they just kind of immediately jump to the conclusion, I could never own X, Y, or Z franchise because I don't have any experience in that industry. And I'll give you another example. I'm talking to a lot of people currently that are in the tech field in some form or fashion. And unfortunately, that's an industry that's really being impacted right now, and a lot of layoffs are happening. So, I'm having quite a few conversations with people in tech that are exploring their options, and, they've thought about business ownership. But, when you look at the world of franchising, someone coming from a tech background, whether it's software development or even like technology sales, if they jump to the conclusion that, if I'm going to own a franchise, I need to own a franchise that's in technology in some form or fashion. I mean, it's not a whole lot out there that's a true franchise that the business itself, the product or the service that the franchise is selling, revolves around technology or like service, software as a service type of thing, because it's just not a business model that really needs to franchise, right? The most successful franchise businesses and the companies that choose to franchise their business do so because they see the value of having local ownership. And so when you look at tech, when you look at software, that local ownership is just not as necessary or as critical of a component to be able to scale the business. So using that as an example, someone in the tech field could very quickly jump to the conclusion that, there's just no franchises out there. that could be a good fit for them. Everyone, we'll get right back to the episode, but I wanted to quickly share a free resource with you. If you're curious about franchise ownership and want to learn more about how countless people, including myself, have leveraged franchising as a way to create more freedom for themselves and to take control of their livelihood, I've put together an ebook. It's called Franchise Wealth Creation, and it's the perfect starting point for anyone that's just curious to learn more about this whole franchise thing and how I've helped hundreds of other people navigate all the steps involved in understanding and researching franchising. So click the link in the show notes, fill out a short form. I'll send you the ebook. I think it's a great starting point if you're curious at all about learning more about franchising. All right, let's get back to the episode. I'll give another example, and we're speaking in generalities here, right? So I hope if there's any doctors or medical professionals listening to this, please don't take offense, because I know for a fact there are many exceptions to this, but you're seeing a lot of different franchise concepts pop up in what I would consider the health, wellness, or recovery category, right? So these are businesses that you can take fitness out of this, right? Fitness is a very kind of proven, established category within the franchising sector. But if you take some of these other health and wellness type concepts, think IV therapy, think, infrared and sauna therapies, think assisted stretching is a pretty, established category at this point. Anything where clients are proactively partaking of some type of a service to take better care of themselves. Some of these franchises, hormone replacement therapy, right, is something that's become a lot more, I think, understood and I guess you could say mainstream over recent years. Some of these are businesses that legally, especially in certain states, require medical oversight, meaning that a doctor, someone with a certain level of credentialing in the healthcare space, needs to have oversight in that business. And so, one might think, okay, well, I don't have a medical background. I don't have a medical degree. I didn't go to medical school. So how could I own this franchise? Well, the franchisors in those types of businesses are really not looking for medical professionals to be their franchise owners. They want people that are business minded. They want people that have the business savvy, the business experience, the understanding of the financial side of businesses, experience building, managing, leading high performing teams to come in as their franchise owners. And again, I'm not saying that every medical professional or every doctor out there does not have any of those skill sets, but generally speaking, a lot of these franchisors in these types of businesses recognize that if they solely try to recruit medical professionals as their franchise owners, they're quite possibly missing a lot of opportunity for other people to come in and own their franchises that could be far more successful because of their business skills, because of their experience. So my point is, these franchisors and these types of businesses actually go out of their way to try and identify medical professionals that would be interested in partnering with their franchise owners who do not have the medical background or the medical credentials, so that they can check that box that's required by the state for medical oversight, but still get the benefit of having a business savvy, growth minded, entrepreneurial type franchisee. So, hey everyone, we'll be right back to the episode, but one quick note, success doesn't happen in a vacuum. So if you'd like to learn more, you want to go deeper and interact with like-minded people, I'd love to have you join the free Path to Freedom Facebook group. You can join by going to pathtofreedom.com/group and become a part of the Path to Freedom community. All right, back to the episode. Anyways, those examples really to just kind of set the table for, again, this misconception that I run into all the time, which is that I can't own a franchise unless it's in an industry that I have direct experience in. And that's just not the case. And so part of understanding this is zooming out and really understanding how the franchise business model works in the long term for franchisors. And smart franchisors know this. They're thinking long term. Their model works when they have happy, successful, profitable franchisees that are able to continue growing and scaling their businesses over time. Because the franchisor's primary revenue stream in any franchise is going to be what? It's going to be the royalties, right? The percentage of gross revenue that the franchisees are paying back to the franchisor. So therefore, it's in the franchisor's best interest to design their business model and structure all of their systems and processes and support to help the franchisees in every way possible to continue growing and scaling their business. Furthermore, it's in the franchisor's best interest to do everything in their power to put their franchisees in a position to not only grow and scale, but to do so in a profitable manner. Because if the franchisees aren't profitable, they don't really care about how much revenue they're doing, even though, yeah, that's putting more money in the franchisor's pocket. But if the franchisees can't grow while maintaining strong profit margins, what's the point for them? Why are they going to keep putting in the time, energy, and effort to grow the business? Also, if you've listened to this show at all and heard me talk about best practices when it comes to researching franchises, you'll know that by far the most important step in researching any franchise is validation. Speaking to other franchise owners that are already in the business and learning from their experience. So that's going to come through in validation. If the franchisees are frustrated because they can't run their business profitably, that's going to come through. And guess what? It's going to be harder and harder and harder for these franchisors to sell new franchises if the validation is not strong and there's not good feedback from the existing franchisees that they're running a profitable business, they're growing their business over time, and they're getting the type of support that they need from the franchisor to be able to do that. So, I take a minute to kind of explain all of that, because when you look at the vast majority of these franchise businesses out there, they're designed for scale, right? And then if you understand everything we just walked through, the support is set up to help the franchise owners grow, continue growing, but do it in a profitable manner. And so as this pertains to this topic, this misconception of, not needing relevant industry experience in most cases, because with this scalability top of mind for all franchisors, they don't want franchise owners that are going to be on the front lines of the business, directly providing whatever the product or the service is to the customers. Okay. Take McDonald's as an example. I use McDonald's a lot as an example because everyone knows McDonald's, right? It's not the franchisee's role to cook the fries or flip the burgers. Does a franchisee do some of that in the beginning when they're learning? Yeah, probably. Is that their role day in and day out? Absolutely not. And if that's how the franchisee is spending their time, they're probably in serious trouble. Take our custom shelving franchise, right? I've never done a single installation of our custom shelving products. Neither has my wife. My wife did run a lot of the sales appointments in the beginning as we were starting the business, because she wanted to really learn and master that process. But she certainly didn't have prior shelving sales experience, but she didn't have any sort of in-home sales experience, right? But the franchise had pretty good training and a lot of systems and support in place to help a new franchisee pretty quickly learn what that process needs to look like, and then continue to fine tune it. Take a Pilates franchise, right? It's not the role of the franchise owner to be in there leading the Pilates classes and instructing the clients. It's the role of the owner. Insert any of these examples that I just gave, insert any other type of franchise business you can think of. It's the role of the owner to orchestrate the big picture, right? It's the role of the owner to take the playbook that the franchisor has developed and that the other franchisees have helped to fine tune and implement that playbook, right? So, again, if scalability is the goal in almost any franchise you can think of, the primary role of the franchise owner is going to be to recruit, hire, train, and mentor their team. All right. And that team can look very different depending on the type of business that you get into, from the number of employees that you need, the types of employees that you need, the background and experience that those employees require, the amount of effort that's going to go into training them and mentoring them on an ongoing basis. That's why in my process, as I'm coaching someone through, we spend a lot of time talking about any previous management or leadership experience. And, are there certain types of employees that you've managed in the past and you've really enjoyed managing those types of employees? Are there certain types of employees you'd really prefer not to manage, or that you probably would not be as successful having to manage? Because that is always going to be one of the primary roles as a franchise owner. I'll also say this, because this comes up all the time. It's going to be the hardest part of any business that you could ever possibly own, franchise or not. Hardest part of any business is the people part, finding and keeping good people. My wife and I joke all the time that if it weren't for customers and employees, this business ownership thing would be pretty darn easy, right? Both of those things are also pretty darn necessary to building any sort of a lasting business. We'll get right back to the episode in just a minute, but if you've been considering business ownership, if you're already a business owner looking to expand and you're curious about franchising, I'd love to connect with you, answer any initial questions that you have, talk about a specific franchise, and detail the exact process that I use and have taken hundreds of people through to help them understand franchise ownership, find the right franchise for them, and conduct the necessary due diligence. Click the link in the show notes if you'd like to schedule a free, no obligation strategy call. I look forward to talking with you. And now back to the episode. Keeping that in mind, right? That is such a big part of why industry experience is not necessary or required, right, by most of these franchisors, because it's not the primary role of the owner to be the industry expert. In fact, I work with quite a few franchises. I'm not going to name any specific brand names, but let's take roofing as an example, the roofing business, right? I work with franchises that specifically tell us as consultants, hey, if you've got someone that has owned their own roofing business in the past, or has maybe worked for a roofing company, done roofing sales, that's not really who we're looking for as our franchisee, because in all likelihood, they probably have a certain way that they're used to doing things. They probably are set in their ways, possibly with some bad habits that they would have to break. They would rather have an industry outsider come in that's got the other skill sets they know they're looking for, right? Someone that can build a high performing sales team, someone that can go out and develop relationships in their market with, in the case of a roofing business, insurance adjusters, contractors, builders, all types of business development opportunities in really any of these businesses. So they're not looking for that industry experience. They're looking for people that have the softer skills that they know are going to translate well to a successful owner. In any franchise, one of the biggest benefits that you're going to get as a franchisee is reporting and clearly defined metrics that you should be looking at in your business, KPIs, right? Key performance indicators. you're going to have benchmarks, right? Hey, if average close rate is a KPI that's important in your business, you're going to know, okay, what's the average close rate across the system? And then you're going to know where you stand compared to that average. And you're probably also going to be able to see what franchisee has the best close rate in the system. Who should I go talk to if I know I need to get a little bit better with my close rate because I'm below system average, right? So these franchisors are looking for owners that have the ability to track and manage based on those key performance indicators, right? They want franchise owners that can, again, build out that team and delegate, get to the point where their time as the owner is predominantly spent working on the business instead of in the business. And depending on the franchise, you as the owner may have to spend some time working in the business in order to get to that point where you can work on the business, right? And it's not just depending on the franchise, it also depends on the individual, the franchisee, right? Largely depends on your experience, your skill set, your level of comfort when it comes to building a team and managing. All right. I've seen some people come in and very successfully put a team in place, empower that team, and they're working on the business pretty much from the get-go. Whereas other people, it's probably going to be necessary that they spend that time working in the business to really learn it, to really understand it, which is then going to put them in a better position to hire the right people, to train those people, and to hold them accountable. So the pathway to getting to that place where you as the owner are working on the business, not in the business, can look different based on the type of franchise that you get into and your skill set as the franchise owner. But regardless, the long-term goal for almost every franchise out there is they want owners that can, see the big picture and focus most of their efforts on continuing to grow the business. And that is very, very hard to do if you as the owner are constantly bogged down in the weeds or constantly tied up working in the business, working in the day-to-day activities of the business, and you can't remove yourself to have that time to focus on the bigger picture. So hopefully that kind of makes a little bit of sense as to why a franchisor is probably not going to be concerned at all if you express an interest in their franchise. And if they were to look at your LinkedIn profile and see that you have no relevant industry experience, they're far more concerned with the experience that you do have and how well that would translate to the activities that they know their franchise owners should be spending most of their time on. All right. And very rarely are you going to find that those activities are going to be tied to whatever the front line services, if you will, of the business are. So I hope this resonates with people because I think it stops a lot of people from, taking any real steps towards exploring different types of franchises. And so if you can understand this, and if you can keep an open mind in terms of the types of franchises that you'd be willing to consider, right? Most of the people that I've worked with and helped get into franchises that have gone on to be very successful, the business that they're in is a business that never crossed their mind, before we worked through my process. Because as I'm recommending franchises to someone and kind of matching them up with brands, I'm not really looking at your resume and saying, okay, I see that you spent 10 years in the insurance agency and, this business kind of requires some experience in the insurance industry. I'm not looking at that. I'm looking at the softer skills, right? Okay, I see this person's got a very successful track record in developing long-term client relationships, developing B2B accounts. I see that this person's got great experience, managing a high performing sales team, right? And then I'm going to the brands that I work with that I know are looking for owners with strengths in those particular areas. That's one of the primary things I'm taking into account, amongst other things, as I recommend specific brands for someone. So, if I could give two pieces of advice, if you've maybe dabbled at looking at franchises or never even really seriously thought about it because you thought, oh, I don't want to own a burger joint or a sub joint, and I don't know off the top of my head of any franchises in the industry I've spent most of my career in. Understand that industry experience is not necessary, not even preferred in most cases, and just be willing to keep an open mind in terms of the types of businesses that you would consider owning, and you will dramatically increase the likelihood that you can find a business that's a great fit for you. So I hope this was helpful. Share this with someone that you think may also find it interesting or get some value from it. Please like, share, subscribe, and all those things. It really helps me out, and I certainly appreciate it. And as always, if you want to talk one-on-one about franchise ownership, even if it's just very exploratory, if you just have some basic questions or want to better understand my process, the steps that I take someone through to really get clear on the goals that they have around business ownership, what types of franchises might I recommend for them? And I just gave a little insight into some of the things I'm looking at to determine my recommendations. Reach out. There's a link in the show notes or the comments here to my calendar. Book a call. My time, my services are always completely free. There's no obligation, just solid advice. So would love to talk with you if you want to dig deeper into any of this. All right. Until next time. Thanks.